Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Sykoo or Sam here, and welcome back to my channel, guys. And today I'm here with a brand new video for you guys to demonstrate and showcase how you can use the new post-processing behavior script that has been added to Unity in 5.6. I decided that I would use it in my previous level design. In fact, the level design you see in front of you right now on the screen is actually from my previous video. So if you haven't watched it yet, I'm gonna link in the description below so you can see the final result with the image effects, because this is without the image effects. As you can see, I have it empty here. I'm gonna get into it as soon as possible, what that profile field means. So I'm just gonna remove this component to start off with so that I can do it from the beginning, so you guys see how I actually do it, and it becomes a little bit more proper tutorial video, I guess. So without further ado, guys, let's get started with this video. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click on add component, and then I'm gonna search for post-processing, and I can already see that post-processing behavior script pops up. So this is the only script you need from now on your main camera. So now you can see that there's a field called for profile, and that's the only field you actually have to fill in here. So what you want to do is to create a profile that you're gonna use on your scenes and on your levels. So you do that by clicking or going to the project tab and right clicking, and then you choose create, just as you would have created a prefab, and then as a difference you go to post-processing profile. So it's underneath prefab. This is a new field that has been added to Unity 5.6 because of this new post-processing stack effect. So, and you can obviously name it whatever you want, just like any other prefab. I'm gonna call it for tutorial video because I just want to make sure that I keep an eye on it. And you can want to go back to your camera or main camera, depending on what kind of camera you're using, and then drag and drop this new prefab, aka the profile you created, into the profile field inside of the inspector. So it's very simple. You can also obviously click here and then search for it, but it's also going to display all these profiles that have been already created inside of the assets tab. So you can also go to scene, but you don't really need to do that. So I already have it here now, and what I want to do is either double click on the project tab's profile that I created, or I can double click in here inside of the inspector. So it's gonna redirect me to the same thing. So now you can see that I have these fields that have been added by Unity in this new update with the post-processing stack. And you can see that these are all image effects that were already represented in Unity, older versions of Unity. And now these effects have been legacy that are also released on the asset store. So if you want to use the older versions, you can obviously do that. So Unity never actually limits you, which is also another reason why I love this engine. So that's a cool feature. And now you can also see that you can just, instead of adding all these components independently to your camera, you already have them inside of this profile. So if I want to have anti-aliasing, I just click here and it will check mark, and then it will add the anti-aliasing. So, and I just want to get started with pretty much just optimizing and adding all these effects and showcase to you guys, or demonstrate perhaps, how I do it, so you can do it this way too. But keep in mind that these are just for my suiting for my feelings and my taste, kind of, for my levels. So if you want to, edit all these fields by yourself, go ahead and do it. And I would actually recommend you to do it, because you're going to learn a lot more than just watching this video and being done with it. So go ahead and do whatever you want to do. So, but you can at least watch this video in order to learn how these effects work. So I want to start off by adding anti-aliasing, because it's very important to have all these jaggy, jizzly, edges of the models, especially trees and foliages, very smooth. So you add sort of a blur effect by using anti-aliasing to them, and you can see the effect as soon as you checkmark this. The blur is a little bit too strong for my taste in the anti-aliasing script, and it also blurs out the models in general a little bit from what I can see. It may be because there are many edges inside of these models that I use in my scene. For example, the car has these fan holes. I don't know what they are for, but these holes in the motor part of the car. So these are going to be blurred out, which results in a little bit more of a general blur around this area. But I'm fine with it, but it's just a little bit too much for my personal taste. But I'm not gonna play around with the settings too much. I'm still happy with the results, rather than having it this way without it. So you can see all these jaggy edges on the grass, especially. It's really important to not have them if you want to have a high quality scene. So I'm just going to enable anti-aliasing and keep it that way. Now next up, I want to add some shadows to my grass and to my models and to all these edges and you know, inside parts of the edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check mark Ambient Occlusion. So this is an effect that is going to add a little bit of a shadow effect to all these, you know, all these spaces in between your models and textures. So, and I'm actually going to open up the Ambient Occlusion field so that I can see the settings here. And I am going to play around with the intensity a little bit to see how much actually fits my scene, because you can see that my scene is a little bit of a abandoned kind of post-apocalyptic scene, you know, where there's a car abandoned, there are buildings abandoned, there are buildings that have fallen apart. So I want to have this little bit of creepy vibe in there. I don't really want it to be sunny and shiny right away, because I also have some clouds in the background, so obviously it's a little bit of foggy, a little bit more dark and mysterious rather than being sunny. So I'm just gonna add some ambient occlusion and add this little bit of extra step for shadows in order to give this a little bit more creepy vibe. So I'm gonna have it a little bit stronger than 1, which is the default value that comes in the Unity. So I'm gonna have just a bit more higher than that, like 1.5 perhaps might be fine with it. So I'm also going to take it back to 1 in order to compare what it was with 1.5, which is right now, and what it is with 1. So I can just undo that. There we go. So I just switch in between and see the effect, and you can see that the shadows inside of the bushes are much stronger and better with 1.5, although the grasses don't look way too shadowy either. So it's really good. I'm really happy and satisfied with 1.5. I could also play around with radius. If you don't know, radius just plays around with the scaling, or the radius of your shadows that are added to your models, but I don't really want to play around with it because 0.3, the default value, is already really good. So if I play around with it, you can see that it almost instantly really just destroys my scene. So I don't want to, you know, play around with this setting. I am happy the way it is. So, and I also have sample count. This is the quality for the ambient occlusion. I usually tend to go with high settings because it adds a little bit more shadow to the grass, and it also looks a bit more sharp rather than blurred out. So I like it, but you can also use medium. What I found out though is that it doesn't really affect your performance of the game too much. Like, it doesn't make a bad performance. So why not go with high? That's pretty much my opinion on that. So there are also many different, or not many, but a few different settings that have been added to this ambient occlusion script. One being force forward compatibility. I don't really know what these do, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, but there was something that said about, I think it was just light rendering. So I was thinking of this, ambient only deferred plus HDR, but it was not related to that. And I don't remember where I saw it, but if I see it, I'll let you guys know in the comment section below, but that was not related to this, at least, so now I know. Anyway, force forward compatibility, it does force compatibility with forward rendered objects when working with deferred rendering path. Okay, that was the one that is related to this setting. So that's what I was trying to say. I thought that it was for ambient only deferred lighting and HDR, but it was not. So it was more about this. I'm not really sure about what this setting does, so I'm not gonna play around with it. And even if I do enable it, I can't really see any difference in my scene. So I don't really think that it's very important for me. However, I'm gonna read a little bit more about this and then come back to you guys in the comments down below. So make sure to keep an eye out. Then high precision, I don't really play around with that either. Ambient only, I don't really need this setting because I don't only use HDR. I use many different scripts like debloom and all that. So I don't really feel like these settings are necessary, and they are also unchecked as a default. So if you want to try it out and you know you have a different scene, perhaps they don't work that well in this scene specifically because this is not very complex and this is not very nature related. It's a bit more, you know, of a city and inside the city with foliage. So maybe perhaps these have a little bit more effect on different scenes, but you can play around with these settings like I said, but I don't really need them, so I don't really want to care about them anymore. So next up, in this type of scene I don't really need screen space reflection because obviously the ground is not supposed to reflect anything, since this is just, you know, roads, and I also have foliage on them, so it really covers up almost the entire part of the road. So I don't really need screen space reflection, but you could use them inside scenes where you are indoors, like interior scenes. I'm also going to make a speed level design of an interior. I already made one back in 2016, 2015, I guess, something like that. And I'm gonna make a new one with the screen space reflection because the script has been added recently. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to demonstrate what this script can do. But however, I'm not gonna use it in this scene because I don't really need it. Even if I do enable it, you can see that there is no difference. So depth of field, I usually tend to keep myself away from the script most of the time if I don't really have something that is being focused mainly. So for example, if I do enable this, they have removed the object field. I don't know why they did that, but they have done that. So yeah, okay, that's the way it works now. So if I just decrease the focus distance, you can see that it becomes a little bit blurry in the background. However, the car, at least the front part of the car, the one that is closer to the camera, is not very blurred out. But I don't know why they removed the functionality of adding a object inside of a field here, and then having it to be a main focus of the camera, so that everything else was blurred out except the car then, or the object that you would put in the field there. So I don't know why they removed that, but it was a stupid mistake, I guess. But they have done that, so I don't really appreciate it. But I was not using depth of field even when there was that option for the most of the time, so I don't really care about it that much, to be honest. But you know, it was still a pretty important feature in IMO. So I'm not going to use depth of field in this scene, but you can use it obviously if you have like an object you want to focus, or if you want to make it blurry in the background. I remember I was using depth of field when I was making levels in the past, when I didn't really have a good background. So I just wanted to cover it up with some blurring. It's a good technique, honestly, but it's not very efficient either. So it's still not going to look good if you have an empty background. Yeah, I just don't want to use depth of field because I want everything in the scene to be visible to the eye. I also do love motion blur, and I saw that they actually made motion blur a lot better in this new version. So you can play around with the settings here. I usually tended to keep it on a little bit of the, you know, perhaps the default values or the standard values, because I really enjoy the values that come around with Unreal or Unity. And I'm actually gonna hit play here to see how it functions inside of the scene, so I can also edit while I'm running the scene to see the difference, because obviously you want to be able to run the scene whilst you know, editing all these settings for the motion blur, since it's gonna play around and make a huge difference. But I can't really see a big difference here. I'm not sure of why. Maybe this is the part? Yeah, this is the part. Okay. So, it doesn't work that well. I remember when I use it for another scene, it's more about moving objects, I guess. Yeah, it is. I thought that it was supposed to be on smaller bushes and all these foliages that are also moving by the wind, because it was supposed to be like that, but it doesn't really work that well right now. I don't know why. But you can see that the car has a very, very, very nice radial blur effect. However, I did make it a little bit too strong right now. So I can even go back to the, I can go back to the profile and edit that out. So I can make it lower here, and you'll see, okay, sample count doesn't really play around with the setting, I guess. Perhaps it's this one, frame blending, that you want to play around with a little bit more. I'm not sure. Does it say what sample count does? Nope, it doesn't. Shutter angle, perhaps? Yeah, this is for exposure time. Okay, so the shutter angle and the blending time is the ones that you want to play around with. You can see that there's barely, or yeah, barely, there's slightly a radial blur effect on this car now. So it looks a lot better rather than not having any radial blur IMO. I really am a big fan of radial blur, so I really love that effect. Especially now in Unity 5.6, they have made this effect so much better, because it was, you know, it was good before too, but it wasn't very good. So I was not very satisfied with the old effect. I was always seeking for something new, third party on the asset store. But with this new effect, I honestly don't see a reason to use another, a different, you know, asset from the asset store. So I'm really happy with this. Adaption is also a script that I love that they added now. If you don't know, adaption is basically, for example, when you look at, let me demonstrate for you guys really easily. So if I rotate my camera here, you can see that it almost becomes darker, right? So I look down and it becomes brighter. So it's really just adapting to whatever lighting settings you have in your scene. But it makes the scene a little bit too shadowy or perhaps dark by default. So if I go back to the profile and disable the script, you can see that it becomes, you know, much more bright, if I should say so. I wish that they kept it this bright by standard, and then when you looked up, it became a lot more dark. But that's not the way it works, I guess. Or perhaps you can play around with the settings. I can actually check that out. Minimum EV, I guess this is when you look up. Yeah, it just increases the time, I guess. So I just want to make sure. Oh yeah, you can actually do that. -5 was this, and then maximum EV. Yeah, cool. Okay, you can use that actually. There we go. That actually looks pretty good. It was tended to be a little bit lower. There we go. Okay, so minus values. -2.5. Let's try with 3.5. 3.5 looks really good, IMO. This is like the standard light that I had in my scene. And then if I look up, it doesn't decrease. I'm not sure why. Should be decreasing as soon as I look up. Perhaps this is the wrong setting to play around with. Oh, hold on. I guess you can do that. It does make it brighter, so I just want to see if it actually makes it brighter by, you know, standard. I think this was on 1, right, as a standard. Yes, cool. Okay, this is really, really good. So I just want to go back to the profile, and I want to demonstrate for you guys how I did it. So you don't really have to play around with minimum and maximum EV. You don't either have to play around with these values here for auto exposure. What you want to do is you want to disable the, or enable perhaps the dynamic key value. Or wait, did I disable it? I think I did. Yeah, you want to disable it, not enable it. So when you look up, it's gonna make it darker. And now you can actually go back and play with these settings now. So you want to make it a little bit more dark here. You can increase this value. Skype, please. I guess you can just increase or not. Oh, okay, this is minimum EV. This is a little bit special because you don't really know what kind of value you want to play around with. This was on 5? No, -5. -4, -3, 1, 2. Seems to be good. This is like the standard lighting that I had in my scene anyway, without the eye adaption too. So if I play and then I just rotate my camera, I'm gonna be able to see the effect. That's really cool. That really looks cool. However, I want to make it a little bit more bright when I look up, because this is a bit too much, too dark. Okay, so that's maximum EV. Cool. Then I learned that too. Because I do learn while I'm teaching you guys as well. So it's a cool little thing to do. -4, 3, 2. I'm just looking at the building to see the difference. 1. -1 is a little bit too much. Dynamic key value. Nah, I don't want to play with that. Histogram filtering. I don't know what that does. Does it say any info? No. Perhaps you just have to stop playing the scene while looking at that. Progressive. Fixed. Oh, you can also set it at fixed. Cool. So it's always going to keep up that value then. That's pretty cool. I'm really not sure what these values do. Honestly, I have no idea. Like, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be teaching, but I really don't have any idea at all. Oh well, the maximum EV is one that you want to play around with. That's what I learned. So if I just look down, sky is a little bit too bright still. Oh yeah, that doesn't play around with the value at all. So I want to go back to the profile, maximum EV, make sure that it's on 1 or -1, sorry. And then you look down, it's going to become a little bit brighter. It's quite slow, or actually no, it's not quite slow. It's pretty good. So I'm happy with these values. This looks pretty good. Although this little flickering, I wish they didn't add that, or perhaps you can disable it or make sure that it doesn't, you know, exist. But I'm not really sure about that. I think I'm done here. I'm pretty happy with the result right now. I'm not gonna stop playing the scene actually. I'm just gonna add on the effects like this so that I can see all the differences. Next up, I obviously want to add my favorite one, bloom. They made the bloom so much better in this update. So much better. The bloom in legacy scripts were really deprecated. Like, they were just terrible. I remember there were like a few bloom effects that they added by default. They all sucked. I'm sorry, but they really did. This new one, you can use dirt texture, you can use the intensity for dirt texture. You can make sure that the bloom is working like the ultimate bloom script. Not really, but you know, a little bit at least, by increasing the radius, and you can also set the softness so it actually just spreads the bloom a little bit more rather than having the one focus area. You can see that if I increase softness, you can see that between these clouds and between this gap between the cloud and the ending of the scene, you can see that it spreads there, and if I decrease it, there's no more bloom there. So it's really cool to be able to, as a developer, you really do have a freedom of creativity with this new bloom script. So I really love it, and I usually tend to keep it softness at 0 because I don't really want to have the bloom spread too much. What I usually love to do is that I have a strong bloom effect in one specific area, and then I make sure that the bloom radius is spreading all over the place. So it almost looks like fog, but at the same time not really. So this looks really good. Intensity, I don't really want to play around with it, but I can see the difference at least. If I increase it way too much, you can see that it's becoming a bit too much. So I usually keep it at 0.5 or actually take it to 0.3 in this specific scene, because these clouds really do block the bloom anyway, since they don't really support that bloom because they're not very bright. So if you don't have these clouds, obviously you're gonna have a little bit more strong bloom here, so you may want to play around with the intensity by that. But adapting to my scene, I don't really want to play around with the bloom settings way too much. 0.3 really fits my scene IMO. So I'm not gonna, you know, I'm satisfied with the results right now. So that's cool. Next up, I want to go to color grading. Is nothing that I play around with, honestly, even though it's a pretty good script. Like, you can see that it almost makes the color grading really makes all the colors adapt to each other pretty much. You can see that the brighter areas have been a little bit more grayed out now, especially on the cloud. But I do want to have that a little bit of exposure on my cloud so that you can see the shadowy parts of the cloud here, for instance, rather than having it like this, because this looks washed out. I don't really like it, at least not in this scene. Once again, it really just it's more of a question if it fits your scene or not. So that's how you want to use these post-processing effects. But I'm not gonna use the color grading, and you can see that there are many different options for color grading. So you can make sure that you use color grading, but at the same time it doesn't look very washed out. You can play around with the intensity, the colors, the curves, anything really. But I'm really satisfied with my scene right now, so I just want to move on to the other ones. User LUT is nothing that I play around with. I can add actually I don't really know. Oh, okay, so you just have to use a LUT. Is there? Yeah, there is. Okay, there we go. And then contribution. I don't really see any effect on this. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't see any effect. So I'm not really 100% sure what user LUT does. I honestly thought user LUT was the same as eye adaption, by, you know, making your scene brighter and darker depending on if you look up or down, or on brighter areas or darker areas. So User LUT was obviously not that, but so I don't really want to play around with this because there are no more settings to play around with anyway, so I don't really, you know, find it helpful to my scene anyway, so it doesn't contribute. So next up we also have Chromatic Aberration. This is a pretty cool script actually, especially if you're making like a retro type of game, or perhaps you have like a computer in your game and you want this little bit of jaggy edges on like these color blendings, green, red, pink, or whatever, rainbow kind of colors. It looks really cool, but it's, once again, it doesn't fit my scene. This scene is not, you know, I'm not using like a, perhaps if you're making a game like you're playing a robot or something, you may want to have chromatic aberration to higher value like this. It may look cool, or maybe like your character is sleepy or whatever, you may want to use this effect to add this little bit of a stressed out effect, pretty much. But once again, it doesn't fit my scene, so I'm not gonna really use that. I just realized how red this cloud edge becomes, or the building edge becomes, and it also has to do with the cloud. So yeah. But anyway, once again, it doesn't really, it's nothing that I want to contribute to my scene, so I don't really care about it. Grain is a pretty cool effect though. Grain is noise. That's what it was called previously. I usually tend to keep it much lower than the default value in terms of intensity, because I don't really want to have noise that is very visible. I just want them to be, you know, be there on the bright areas, but not really visible to everything. And you can see that I usually also tend to keep size much lower than the default value, which is 1. It's incredibly big, and if I increase the intensity, you're going to be able to see the size really clear here. It's way too big. So what I do is I decrease the size. This looks pretty good. And then what I do is obviously I decrease the intensity so that you can almost see this slightly and barely on the brighter areas of the map. Like you can see a little bit of a jag and noise on the clouds and the bloom, but you can't really see it on the grass. So that looks really good IMO. This is what fits my or suits my, you know, taste or feeling or whatever. So if you want to have it different way, obviously you can do that, but this is what I like to do. Luminance. Oh, okay, so this is a little bit more of an effect on that. That actually looks pretty cool, but it's a bit too much for my taste. So I'm actually gonna keep it like that. That looks really cool, IMO. That's pretty good. So next up we also have vignette, and I hope I do pronounce this word right. I don't know if it's vignette or pronounced a different way, but I'm gonna call it for vignette. The default vignette they added is way too strong. The effect itself is good, however, but the intensity has to be lower. You can't go with 0.44 or 0.45. It's just way too high. It almost looks like a tunnel vision because of the vignette. So you just want to have a slight darker edges to your camera. And if I disable the script, you're going to be able to see how much it actually contributes to the scene, even with such a low value. So I can even take to 0.2, disable it, and you can see how much it contributes. I don't really want to have it darker than that, honestly, because I already have Ambient Occlusion on all these scripts. With a higher vignette, it's almost going to look like it's blurred out, and once again, as if the character is using tunnel vision, which is going to look ugly. However, if you're making a game located in like a tunnel vision place or whatever, where tunnel vision could be, you know, something that is relevant to your scene, perhaps you can use this, but I don't really want to have it so strong in the scene. So yeah, rounded is a, oh okay, so they let you choose if it's a little bit more rectangular rather than rounded. I don't really like rounded like this. I usually have it like this so that it almost spreads across the screen depending on how high intensity you have. Once again, I'm gonna have it on 0.2, so I don't really want it to be that high. You can also use smoothness so that you increase or decrease the blurring on the vignette itself. So I'm not gonna play around with it either. 0.2 is actually very good, especially with intensity being 0.2. So they really do fit together. Dithering, I'm not sure what this does. Oh, it actually made Unity crash. Grain, or not crash. Grain is enabled, you probably don't need dithering. Okay, so dithering is the same as noise or grain. If I disable grain, oh really? There's nothing to configure on dithering. That's really weird. I thought dithering was going to add a bit of a more noise texture to the grain, where you could be able to choose the noise texture itself. It's weird that they don't let you really configure anything. Perhaps it's something that is going to be added in the future update, but I'm not sure. But so far so good. I really do enjoy the grain. And if I go back to the main camera and I disable post-processing behavior, you can see the effect that the post-processing is adding to the scene. You can see that it really does contribute to your scene and makes it more beautiful. This is not a product that I would release at all, but if I enable this, you can see that it almost looks a lot better instantly. So I really do enjoy this way of adding these image effects and making sure that your scene is optimized. If you have your own ways, if you have your own values that you would suggest me to check out, let me know in the comment section below. Please do leave a like if you enjoyed this video, guys. It really helps out. And also I want to make more tutorial videos, so if you have any ideas on what I could do for future videos, let me know in the comment section below too. Once again, leave a like if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful. If you want me to use post-processing behavior or perhaps the post-processing stack on my future videos too, let me know in the comment section below, guys. I'm always active there. And yeah, if you want to stay up to tune for new videos coming soon, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.